Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. The first story. I made it clear no painting approval would be considered until all rubbish was removed. The second story. Employee flirted with his coworkers and annoyed them. He was fired, and after that he asked for a reference from his former boss. The third story. I used the speakerphone system to teach my manager a lesson for not helping me. The first story is, always read the contract. I work on an LMSR. That's a military vehicles carrier for you laymen. Ever seen those ships that look like giant floating shoeboxes? That's what I work on. They have a tiny living area, a tinier bridge, and a decent-sized engine room. In the industry, we call them ro-ros, roll on, roll off, as they don't crane cargo on and off. They actually have a massive stern ramp to allow cargo to drive on and off itself. All of these flaws I mentioned were designed to give as much space to the massive cargo holds, and they are massive. We were in a shipyard in North Charleston, South Carolina for repairs a few years back. Of the many jobs we contracted to get done was the chipping and painting of the interior cargo holds. Now again, these cargo holds were massive. Imagine 2+ football fields laid end to end with an overhead of 12 feet. Now imagine 5 decks, floors of that. The ship is big. To tie down all the vehicle cargo, we have chain boxes throughout the holds, which are 4 feet by 4 feet by 3 feet. Metric 1.3 by 1.3 by 1 aluminum boxes. These hold all the ship's lashing gear and are strategically located all over the ship's cargo holds. Unfortunately for me, the shipyard workers decided these made great trash cans. There was always one within tossing distance, and best of all, it hid their garbage. Why toss it onto the deck when there was a chain box nearby? After 2 weeks of nagging the contractors to stop tossing their trash into the bins, I fumed to the captain next door. He suggested I read the contract we had with this painting company. I was not smart enough to see what he wanted me to do, so he dumbed it down for me. So-and-so coatings were to provide me with transportation, just an electric golf cart, up and down all 6 decks, to ensure the work is being done, and levels of cleanliness are being maintained. I even had a driver, whom I will call Radar, like the dude from MASH the TV show. I showed him the contract. All rubbish brought aboard by contractors was to be disposed of by them. They naively assumed this meant those garbage cans we ignore for the chain boxes. And so, I did just that. I made Radar stop at every effing chain box and empty them out, and there were about 90 to 100. The first 2 to 3 days he tried to claim that the garbage, almost all Monster drinks, coffee cups, water bottles, and Newport cigarette packs, was there already, but he cleaned them up as a token of goodwill. Naturally, they were full the next day as well, and the day after that, and the day after that. After about 10 days of this, Radar had enough. He tried to complain to his boss about the workers tossing their trash into the chain boxes, and the solution was to let the workers toss their SH in the chain boxes. We'll clean it up at the end. Come the end of the job, and surprise, surprise, Radar tried to drive me right to the painting job, right past the garbage-strewn chain boxes. Imagine his surprise when he realized I had not forgotten about the rubbish. As a matter of fact, I told Radar I wanted to see the chain boxes before anything else. When I realized they were still full of rubbish, I told Radar, empty that SH, and don't call me until it's done. So-and-so coatings were not happy about this, and any question they asked about the quality of paintwork was shot down by me. As they wanted to get paid, the GD owner of the company joined Radar and one other guy, and they spent all afternoon emptying the rubbish from 100 chain boxes. I made it clear no painting approval would be considered until all rubbish was removed, period. So Radar and the big boss spent a half day emptying the chain boxes of the trash his workers had filled. Why big boss? Apparently all of his workers had some big money US Navy rush job to attend to, and he wasn't getting paid until I was happy. And I was not happy. At least not until Big Boss was very unhappy. I got my good paint job, and my clean chain boxes. The next story is, tell them the truth. You mean how you were fired because of misconduct? Okie dokie. To be clear, this isn't my story, it's my sister's. She randomly told me this last Friday when I dropped by for dinner. Her previous employment was with a branch of a Swedish retail store. They sell expensive, luxurious furniture. When my sister was working there, they had about 20 people working the floor, the highest being the regional manager. He's also the only Swedish in the store. 5 people working in the higher office and the rest were floor attendants. Each person in this higher office covered a different part of the store. There were, if I recall correctly, an accountant, a biller, an HR, a purchaser, and a head office, to whom basically everyone reported. My sister was the biller. I never cared enough to ask her what exactly her job was. The purchaser, let's call him Jack, was a competent guy. He did his job to near perfection and would often help others with theirs, as well as went out on the floor interacting with people. But apart from the high office, floor attendants resented him. Not publicly, but my sister was paying enough attention to notice. Nobody would say anything though. They just said he's creepy. Until one day when the boss, the Swedish guy, came in. He would often work remotely and only came in during disarrayed hours. Apparently when he's about to enter the store, he saw from outside the window Jack pestering a female floor attendant. She was clearly very annoyed. The boss observed for a while and eventually caught the guy placing his hand on her thighs. He immediately called the police, all 5 of them, into a meeting, and asked Jack to clarify his intentions. Jack said they're just playing around. Now, as sickening as it may sound, in my country this is somewhat normal. When girls get harassed like this, it's their fault for not covering themselves properly. In these instances, people would justify the harassment and blame the victim instead. My generation is trying to reject this mindset, but some people are just built differently. There are laws, but this kind of mindset is taken off long enough it's not something that can be undone in a short amount of time. And no, not everyone is like that. People are more and more willing to stand up to themselves and others. The younger generation isn't that easy to bully is what I mean. But because the boss was not from my country, he saw this as a major issue. Despite Jack trying to plead that it's nothing, he decided to launch a store-wide investigation into the high office as well, my sister included, because he thought they were covering for Jack. My sister said she actually thought she'd be fired or at least reprimanded. She had never seen him so serious before. The result was alarming. Each and every female floor attendant, 6 or 7 of them, said they'd been pestered by Jack at least once. Some even said he touched them without consent. The boss asked why nobody stepped up. They said they were ashamed and feared retaliation. He then questioned the high office to find out that they were too busy to notice what was happening. Also, nobody ever threatened retaliation. People just assumed there would be because it's usually what happens in my country. After a week and a half, another meeting was scheduled, in which Jack was given the option to resign or be fired. No action was taken against everyone else in the high office, but they were told quite firmly that this kind of neglect could never happen again. Even at that meeting, Jack still insisted that it was nothing. He'd spent the whole duration of the investigation complaining to everyone in the store, including the people he's harassed, that the boss was overreacting. People just gave him the stink eye, but he didn't seem to care. Things were quiet for a week or two, and then it got interesting. One day, the head office lady received a phone call from Jack, during which he asked that they'd be his reference for his new interviews. She was taken aback a bit and asked him, "You want to make us your reference?" Jack: "Yes, I believe I had done my work well enough for you guys to put in a good word." It's true, he's very efficient. In fact, they'd had a hard time finding his replacement. They ended up taking a portion of his work for months while looking for someone suitable. Head office lady: "But the commotion?" Jack: "Oh, that. I'm sure it's nothing. Just tell the truth and I think they'll understand." Head office lady, still baffled: But... Jack: "Look, I won't ask for more. If someone calls, just tell them the truth. I'm sure it's nothing." Apparently, Jack still thought if people heard about it, they would agree with him. When she got off the phone, she was still stuttering. When everyone knew what happened, they were as well. Nobody knew what to do with it, so they informed their boss. He said it's fine if that's what Jack wanted. Starting the following day, he'd come to the store every day. He also instructed everyone that if it's a call about Jack, it's to be directed to him. I think I also need to mention that after almost 7 years living in Vietnam, he can speak decently enough. When the call finally came, the whole office stopped working and instead eavesdropping. There were some people from the floor as well. My sister said that they can only hear from his side of the conversation, but it's pretty easy to see the whole picture. Boss praising Jack with words that would make even the ugliest of witches look like a fairy godmother. Also, boss: "Anything you'll need to worry about?" "Oh, it's just that incident that gave us no choice but to let him go." The other side asked something. Boss: "I'm sure he's told you, but he put his hands on one of our female employees without her consent." The other side gasped. Okay, I imagine this one. The other side asked something. Boss: "Yes, just once." He did pause at this. The other side sighed in relief. And this one. Boss: "That I caught him. Every other instance happened without my presence." The other side asked something else. Boss: "Yes, I have the meeting record in which he agreed to resign in order for us to not take further actions." The other side said something. Boss: "Sure, just contact me via this number. If you want to know anything else, I'd be happy to help." 2 days later, Jack called the head office lady again to ask if anyone contacted them for his reference. She said yes and assured him they were telling whoever called the truth about his performance. He said it's strange because he was rejected in his latest interview. I wonder what could have been the reason. Edit. Okay, since some people thought the store mentioned above was IKEA, I'm just gonna say it now. It's not. Perhaps it's my choice of word. Instead of saying retail, I should have said something else. Just know that they sell furniture, they're from Sweden, and they're not IKEA. Also, my sister said the furniture was expensive and luxurious, so you're all gonna have to take her words for it. The last story is, figure it out myself? You got it, boss. I work in retail. I've been there for approximately 8 months. About 5 months in, the store got a new assistant manager. We'll call him Chuck. Now, Chuck is generally a nice guy as long as you're not shirking your duties. Yes, he really does say that. He generally laughs at jokes, makes a few of his own, and is overall a nice guy most of the time. The only problem I have with him is his management style. The other managers in the store generally try to encourage, teach, and demonstrate. Chuck, by contrast, likes to poke fun, humiliate, or discourage. For example, the store manager, if he sees you're struggling, will show you a quicker, more efficient way of doing your job. Then he leaves you to either do it that way or the way you were doing it. Most people are grateful for the guidance and change how they do the job. Chuck, meanwhile, will say things like, the industry standard is X stock per minute, why aren't you doing that? Or my grandmother could do this job faster than you and she's dead. He always laughs after saying whatever he says, and I honestly think he's ribbing in good nature. However, anyone seeing our faces when he's managing would be able to tell we don't appreciate it. Anyway, this was all backstory. Now on to the compliance. I usually work outside gathering shopping carts. However, Chuck asked me to do some cleaning inside, after I finished topping up the carts. Now, what he asked me to clean was something I had never cleaned before, and after only a few minutes I couldn't figure out how to disassemble the item in question to clean it. So I walked back over to Chuck and asked him to show me how I was supposed to disassemble the unit, since I didn't want to damage it due to ignorance. This is when he uttered one of his iconic lines, "Pretend I got hit by a bus and figure it out yourself." This is a line he usually uses when he's busy talking to someone else. He's not talking to anyone. He was walking somewhere. He wasn't on the phone, he wasn't moving product, he was just on his way somewhere. And the unit I was supposed to be cleaning was just 10 feet away around a corner. It would have taken him maybe 30 to 45 seconds to walk over and show me the proper procedure, but he just didn't have the time for whatever reason. Well, he told me to figure it out myself, so I did. I walked into the back room, found a phone on the wall, and pushed the button for the store PA system. Would a senior employee or manager who does not answer sincere junior employee questions with imitating Chuck's voice, "Pretend I got hit by a bus and figure it out yourself? Please report to the meat department for junior employee assistance. Thank you." I walked out of the back room and Chuck is just staring at me. He doesn't look angry or disappointed or even upset. He's just straight shocked, jaw on the floor. As I walked past him, I said, "Got it figured out, boss. Thanks." In the end, I got a verbal warning for frivolous use of the PA system, but it was so worth it just to get one over on him. Edit. It was a shelving unit in a chilled bunker, where frozen items on sale are placed to be a display. The unit had metal grating covering the floor of the unit, which were anchored into the wall in some way I did not understand how to disassemble. Directly in front of these grates are glass display windows. If I had simply tried to pull these grates out myself, not knowing how to disengage whatever was anchoring them, there was a very real possibility of them coming loose suddenly and shattering those glass display windows. I know those windows are tough, but I'm a big dude and these grates are made of metal. My solution did indeed work. Jerry, the meat department manager, came out of the back room and showed me how to disassemble the grates. He was also trying his DS not to giggle like a schoolgirl in front of Chuck. Lastly, I don't have a contract renewal to worry about. The shop is unionized. I may not technically even have a write-up soon. They're contesting it with corporate since I did in fact do as I was instructed. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.